And inside Thompson Bowling Arena, welcome to even more college basketball on the SEC Network. And did we save the best for last? It's number 6 Tennessee hosting number 19 Missouri. Welcome everybody. I'm Paul Sunderland in rainy Southern California. My partner out in Little Rock is Joe Klein, former Arkansas Razorback star and in the NBA for 16 years. And Joe, is a big man, I know you've been looking forward to this game because look, Tennessee is an elite defensive team at the defensive end, but they are undersized. How are they going to deal with Jeremiah Tillman, who over the last 4 games have been tearing up the league?
Yeah, not just the league, Paul, maybe one of the best big men in the country the last 4 games. I mean, he's shooting 75% from the floor because he gets shots like that. He can put it on the floor. He's mobile. He's starting to block shots. And once he blocks those shots, he can stay involved in the play. And he can run. He can finish. When he gets to the rim with his size, he can just take over a game. Big problem.
6'10", 260-pound senior, Joe, out of East St. Louis. And into kind of a division of 2 different parts of his season. Gotten a lot of early foul trouble through the first 7 games. And over the last 4, he has just been playing at a remarkable level. At 19 points, 10 rebounds in their most recent win, 81-70 over South Carolina. And we're underway.
Rick Barnes very concerned about him tonight. He says that they're not going to be able to guard him single-handedly. So look for a lot of double teams from different areas on the floor coming at Tillman tonight.
Both teams very balanced and also very defensive minded, number 1 and number 2 in the league in field goal percentage defense. Fulkerson with a first look, kick into the quarter to Pons, outside to Keon Johnson, one of the top recruits in a very, very talented young group of players around the SEC. And Missouri, this is something that Rick Barnes was really concerned about in years past, Joe, when he told us, look, Missouri, when they got a longer kick out and rebound, they might hold things up, but now they really want to get out and run. Santiago Vescovi, there was some concern about him, the outstanding guard out of Uruguay. He had a little bit of a hip injury. We saw Keon Johnson. Yves Pons has been struggling at the offensive end, but again, 4 players averaging in double figures. That was your farm-rich starting lineup for Tennessee.
Well, and as you stated, Paul, I mean, Gonzo talked today about they've got to play with pace. They don't want to play against this Tennessee defense in a half-court set time and time again, just as Tennessee doesn't want to play against Missouri's defense time and time again. Both teams want to get out and run and try and get some easy shots, easy points, as Missouri did on that first possession.
Pinson on the blow-by, spins that up and in. And I know when you spoke with Conzo Martin, the head coach at Missouri in his 4th year, he had a long conversation with his star point guard who'd really been struggling over the last handful of games.
Yeah, basically talked with him and said, look, man, you got to be more aggressive. You got to play downhill, north-south, nothing east and west. And he said he was willing to live with some mistakes if Pinson is aggressive in doing that.
That's a nice steal by Kobe Brown, the 6'7" sophomore out of Huntsville, Alabama. And now once again brought to you by Farm Rich. It is the starting lineup for the 9-2 Missouri Tigers, 3-2 so far in the conference. Mark and Drew Smith. Drew Smith, one of the top defensive players in the conference, 2nd in terms of steals per contest all time for the Missouri Tigers.
You got Pons guarding Tillman on the block. That'll be very interesting. You got size versus length of Pons, the muscle of Tillman versus the length and versatility of Pons.
That really is going to be an interesting matchup because Yves Pons only comes in at 6'6", and John Fulkerson, who is the longest of the starters at 6'9" for Tennessee, but not necessarily a wide body strength-wise. Outside to Pons, looking for the 3-pointer and knocks that down. And Tennessee has opened their book.
Kim English talked the other day on his news conference that they really think Pons is a good shooter and they want him to shoot more. They want a lot of their guys. They felt part of the problem at Florida the other night is they turned down some good looks and they didn't take them and they passed them up, and they're really encouraging their guys to look to shoot and be aggressive in their shot selection.
Pons shooting 19% from outside the arc, coming in only 4 of 21, but he looked very, very comfortable there. But very importantly here, 17:53, we've only played a couple of minutes, and Yves Pons, the reigning SEC Defensive Player of the Year, just picked up his first foul.
We have to watch that, Paul, because in the 2 losses Tennessee's had this year, both of them, Pons has got into early foul trouble.
The one loss we talked about was to Florida last week, 75-49. The other was at home right there in Thompson Bowling to Alabama, who might be, speaking of hot teams and hot players, one of the hottest teams in the country.
Yeah, they are playing lights out. I mean, they have got it going, and a loss to them right now doesn't seem as bad as earlier in the year. If you would have said, yeah, we lost to Alabama at home, you would have kind of said, what happened? I don't think anymore.
Not anymore. Not after what they've been doing. They've now won 9 in a row. The only undefeated team right now in conference play. Drew Smith wearing number 12 in black out of the back court.
Really look, when you watch these teams, you're going to see a lot of this right here, pick and roll. And they were really concerned in the Florida game of their pick and roll coverage. And they weren't so much the point of contact with the pick and roll, but as you saw right there, the 3 defenders, they talked about guys not tagging the roller, not pinching the driver. And right then, Pinson's able to get all the way to the hole.
Xavier Pinson, once again, one of his problems, according to Conzo Martin, was that he was playing east and west. Nothing east and west about this. It was straight south.
Yeah, that's going straight through the tunnel into the downtown area. I mean, there's no turns, no anything. That's the thing that Kim English talked about a little bit, in that they've got to pinch that off. They got to create a pass. They can't, as you saw in that replay, I mean, that was a straight line. And I mean, straight line drives, if you give up straight line drives, there's no defense for that. You've got to correct that.
Pinson will go to the sideline. This is Santiago Vescovi, sophomore out of Montevideo, Uruguay, averaging 10 points, 4 rebounds to go along with 3.3 assists. He, like so many of his teammates, struggled both from the free throw line, where Santiago Vescovi misses both, and also from outside the arc down in Gainesville.
Love getting Tillman in that high pick and roll whenever they can and diving into the basket.
Step through in traffic. That ball deflected out of bounds by Josiah Jordan James, wearing number 5 in white. It'll be Missouri basketball with 7 to shoot.
Missouri really being able to penetrate that defense. They are getting a lot of shots right at the lane. It should open up some shooting for them later on in the game.
Bond's got to be very careful not to pick up his second. There is Drew Smith deep out of the corner, and that's a 3-pointer for the Missouri Tigers, now on top 9-3.
Boy, just a great start from Missouri. Totally different than the game in Columbia.
Well, the game that you mentioned in Columbia, that was on December 30th. Tennessee started 7 for 7, never looked back, won it for Rick Barnes 73-53, and shot it exceptionally well.
Just too comfortable on the handoff on the out of bounds. You got to switch that. You got to fight under it. You can't let a guy just get a handoff and set his feet. Very, very untypical of Tennessee right there.
Drew Smith, 6'3", redshirt senior out of Evansville, Indiana, transfer from Evansville, averaging 12 points, 4 rebounds to go along with nearly 2 steals.
Again, good ball movement by Missouri. Ball going inside out, side to side.
Nice strip. Tennessee's got numbers. Picking right side, laying that up, and it's going to be free throws coming to Tennessee. That was really good play in transition, going from defense to offense. We'll step aside. Just underway. 2 ranked opponents. Missouri on top of Tennessee on the road. Only at Zaxby's. It's been exciting news in Knoxville, Tennessee, and it happened very, very quickly. Philip Fulmer retired on Monday, and just a few days later, on Thursday, Danny White was named the new athletic director at the University of Tennessee, formerly at the University of Central Florida. And boy, like I said, it happened fast, and Tennessee wanted their man. They made Mr. White the 2nd highest paid athletic director in all of college athletics. So congratulations to the new athletic director at the University of Tennessee. And the first thing on the agenda, hire a new football coach.
Just a small item.
Yeah.
Boy, you look at the family, Coach White, Florida basketball and just the lineage of the White family as far as athletics and athletic administration. Just keeping it in the family business, Paul.
Well, his father, Kevin, was formerly the athletic director at Arizona State, where I met him first, then went on to Notre Dame, and then finished his distinguished career at Duke. Kevin, his brother, is and then his brother is also the basketball coach, as you mentioned, at the University of Florida. So congratulations to the new leadership at the University of Tennessee.
Again, Missouri really trying to get that post up. You can see because of the size advantage that you alluded to earlier, where even Michael Smith, who's right at 7 foot, has Bailey guarding him. And they're doing a really good job of finding a body, finding the defender's body and sealing them, and then moving their feet. And that time Bailey gets caught reaching around and grabbing him for the foul. Missouri does a great job, Paul, of their bigs do a great job of posting up hard and finding a guy's body and sealing it.
Really good defense that time by Vescovi. Again, all week long bothered by a hip injury, and Rick Barnes told us when we spoke with him that it was still to be determined day to day, but Vescovi, number 25, out there moving pretty comfortably. Missouri with the early lead. And once again, scoring points, very, very hard to come by for Coach Barnes, now in his 34th year overall, 6th in Knoxville, 719 wins. And speaking of 19, the 2019 Naismith National Coach of the Year, 31-6 that year, also the SEC Coach of the Year. Very, very distinguished career.
Great coach, just like his counterpart, Gonzo Martin, and they mirror each other in so many ways when you hear them talk about culture and the types of kids they want to recruit and how they want to play and the emphasis on defense and extra pass. I mean, it's so much fun to watch these guys coach because they kind of mirror each other and they are just at the top of their profession.
Wonderful job defensively by Missouri at 9-2, 3-2 in conference, denying the inbounds pass. Xavier Pinson back on already with a couple of baskets. He only had 2 points in their last game against South Carolina. That was an 11-point win. Down inside and the first basket of the game for Jeremiah Tillman.
And Tillman slipped the screen that time. He looked like he'd been high ball screening at the top, and that time he took 2 steps to the ball handler and then slipped it to the middle. Got great position, great find by Missouri for an easy 2.
Off the turnover, Missouri looking to push it. Pinson thought about it, better of it. That ball blocked down inside, rejected by Devontae Gaines, number 0 in white for Tennessee.
And you can see he slips it. Fulkerson gets kind of lost, and when he catches the ball right there, you know, case closed, cancel Christmas, whatever you want to say. I mean, it's a done deal,
Easter,
baby.
no Easter egg hunt. Forget all of that.
Yeah.
Well, if he catches it there, no wonder Joey's been shooting 70%. You mentioned it, 19 per game in the last 4, 30 of 40 from the floor.
Again, Tennessee with 3 points through 6 minutes.
Deion Johnson, nice pull-up over the extended hand of the Missouri defense, and a much-needed basket with a lifetime to go for Tennessee, trailing 11-5. Oh, dangerous pass. Pinson will track that down. Still plenty of time on the shot clock.
Good ball by Missouri.
Well, they called an offensive foul on Javon Pickett. Boy, that was a very, very tight call. Nice rotation by Gaines to draw the charge. Gonzo Martin in his 4th year. Now in Columbia, Missouri, had a wonderful playing career at Purdue for Gene Cady. Also had a very successful stint right in Knoxville, 3 years from 2011 to 2014. And in 2014, took a team that was one of the last 4 in. They played in the first 4, went all the way to the Sweet 16 before moving on to Cal and then to Missouri.
Learned under the great Gene Cady at Purdue, who learned the game from my coach, Coach Sutton at Arkansas. And just, again, you can see the similarities and how I was taught how to play basketball through Gonzo Martin and how his teams play. Just very defensive, want a good shot every time down the floor, play very disciplined, very sound.
Nice kick ahead off the turnover, and this is exactly what Coach Barnes talked to us about earlier in the week. Live ball turnovers leading to an aggressive run out by Gonzo Martin and the Missouri Tigers, and a quick timeout called by Tennessee, only managing 5 points, 6 minutes and 49 seconds into this first half. 13-5 is the lead at the timeout. I want to remind you, Wednesday on the SEC Network and the ESPN app, basketball doubleheader starts in Gainesville. Won a couple in a row now. They're getting healthy, and the Florida Gators are playing really well. They take on Vandy against Florida at 6:30 Eastern, 5:30 Central, followed by Ole Miss and Arkansas at Bud Walton Arena. Keys here for Tennessee here, Joe, to try to at least get a good look and a good shot in their half-court offense.
Well, and then talking to, and hearing what Kim English had to say in his news conference, he talked about, and what Gonzo Martin had to say primarily is in the first game, would ask, how did they get off to such a good start? And he said, basically, we let them move the ball side to side. We didn't get into passing lanes. They were able to go inside out, side to side with really no resistance at all, which he said was very uncharacteristic of his team. And you can see they've gotten the message because they are really defending in this first 8 minutes of this game.
Bailey Jr. looking inside for Fulkerson. The lob pass not there. Oh, nice pass inside, and Tillman. He's
too close.
30. It was. He can't. Well, when you've been as hot as he
There's nobody
can.
hanging on his arm, Paul. It was too easy. There was no contact. I mean, it was just too easy.
Well, if he continues to catch it that deep, he's going to have another big game against Tennessee. Vescovi looking down inside for Kumwa, and that ball is turned over. Let's look at the turnover numbers right now for Tennessee. They've turned it over 8 times in just over 7.5 minutes. 8 turnovers.
Very uncharacteristic of Rick Barnes' team. They're really, but again, when you say that, you have to give props to Missouri because they're guarding them, they're making them uncomfortable, they're forcing these turnovers. But again, Tennessee is just out of sorts right now.
Off the front of the iron by Pickett. Tillman not quite able. And that's almost another turnover as well. Vescovi is going to be called for a double dribble. So now that is 9 turnovers. And looking at Tennessee, a team that has not lost the turnover battle all season long to an opponent. You go back and look at where they are. They average only 11 turnovers per game. That's number 3 nationally in terms of turnover to assist margin. They really do ordinarily take very good care of the ball.
Again,
talking about this previous play, Joe, Vescovi lost his dribble, and I don't think he can legally go and pick that ball up. And the officials are talking this one over.
Unless there's some kind of a deflection or something.
I did not see anybody from Missouri put a hand on this ball. No.
No, that's a turnover.
Yep, that's a turnover. Wow.
Well, you know what? He didn't. I think he can pick that up. I mean, if he would have tried to dribble it again, that would have been a double dribble. They must have said, he lost control of it, but he picked it up and went to a pivot. So he wasn't trying to advance it anymore. That would be my guess.
Officials talked that one over. Very fortunate for Tennessee. 10-2 overall, 4-2 so far in conference. Tennessee was picked to win the SEC. Fulkerson loses the handle. Boy, Missouri's defense has been tenacious. Pinson turning on the Jets, lays it up and in. End to end for Missouri. Points off turnovers.
You can just see how much juice that gives a team when they can get deflections and active hands like that and get out and run and get easy baskets. Now look at them on the defensive end. I mean, they are really hyped up, down, guarding, sliding, playing lights out.
Hans is back on. Keon Johnson, jab, step back jumper not there. Good block out by Drew Smith, working inside against Fulkerson and Pons.
Missouri controlling the paint on Tennessee's offensive end. They can't get it in there.
Offensive rebound, can't stick it back, does Tillman, but he'll get to the free throw line. Wow, what a wonderful start for Xavier Pinson and Missouri.
The active hands get Pinson the ball in the open court. Which way is he going, Paul? He's going north. and south. 2 points for Missouri.
Missouri currently up by 10, but it was a different story in Columbia. Tennessee came out, hit their first 7 shots, went on to win it by 20 to open SEC play. And Jaden Springer, who's been bothered by an ankle, he had 13 in that one. Vescovi led the way with 15, and it was all Tennessee, winning at 73-53. But it just seems like a completely different matchup, Joe, doesn't it, through the first several minutes?
Well, I mean, I think what you saw in those highlights was how comfortable Tennessee was. I mean, look at the set shots, the ball going into the paint, and how everything was kind of just, we'll do what we want to do. And that, again, that's what Gonzo Martin alluded to when we talked to him, is that the first game there was no resistance. There was no getting out in the passing lanes, denying, making them uncomfortable. And they're uncomfortable right now, I can tell you, because Missouri has crawled up in them, and they are getting after them, and they are contesting everything that Tennessee tries to do. They're getting out on the break and getting a little pace going to this game for them so that they don't have to play against a very sound and excellent Tennessee half-court defense. And right now it's been all Missouri the first 9 minutes of this game.
Yeah, no question about that. The first time these two teams met, again, in Columbia on December 30th, Missouri turned it over 21 times, only 3 of 16 outside the arc. But Tennessee, and I think everybody who follows college basketball agrees that they're one of the elite defensive teams and defensive schemes in the country. Right now, Missouri is much better defensively than is Tennessee, and they've got better offense to go along with it, thus the 11-point lead early. Both free throws up and good by Tillman. And what happened to Tennessee in Florida was that they got Tennessee'd. And it's something that you came up with, Joe, and I think it's very clever. What does it mean to get Tennessee?
Well, it's basically you just get shut down. You can't score. You can't get good shots. Your field goal percentage defense is bad. Your 3-point percentage shooting is bad. You turn the ball over. You're just taken out of anything you want to do. You get out rebounded, and they just shut you down. And Tennessee right now is getting a little bit of their own medicine, and they had a little bit of that in Florida the other night as well.
Anasicki, number 55, on the floor. Good hard double team on Tillman. Kicks to the perimeter to Drew Smith. Good offensive rebound taken by Pickett in traffic, and he will reset. So a wrestling match inside, and they're going to call. They called that on Anasicki. E.J. Anasicki, the 6'7" senior transfer out of Sacred Heart, battling inside with Tillman, who comes in at 6'10", 260 pounds, and knows how to throw it around.
Fronts him. Anasicki fronts him, but he gets into the body. No backside help. They cleared the backside, and they just threw it right over the top. And he did the only thing he could do, fouling before he dunked it.
5 team fouls now on both Missouri and Tennessee. Mark Smith, wearing number 13 in black, on the floor right now. Pinson feeling it and rattles that one down. Boy, he doesn't look like a player who'd been struggling over the last 3. His conversation with Coach Martin has gone a long way in getting him started to begin this game.
Well, you get a couple layups in transition, and that rim just gets bigger and bigger. And
look at Eve Pons knocking down a couple of threes to start things out. Pons now with 8 points early.
Yeah, they're going to have somebody step up for them and kind of stem the tide of Missouri right now and get their offense going a little bit, because they are really struggling.
The problem with Tennessee is they keep turning it over. They've turned it over 9 times. They've only taken 7 shots as compared to 16 from Missouri.
Not a good formula.
Pinson is red hot, or is it white hot? Absolutely feeling it. Xavier Pinson now with a dozen. Perfect 5 for 5 from the floor, including a couple of threes.
Gonzo needs to watch film with him before every game.
Every game from now on. That off the front of the iron, and the rebound taken by Mark Smith. Yes, there are 3 Smiths on this team. That was nearly a goaltend. Ball is batted around, and it's going to be Missouri basketball.
Well, as you alluded to me earlier today, you said you have the lefties versus the Smiths.
7 left-handers on Tennessee and 3 Smiths. None of them related. The Smiths aren't related on. That was close to a goaltend by Pons.
But again, that's what Missouri wants to do. Both teams talk about how their offense is married to their defense. That means when they can get out and get some hands on the ball and do some things like this right here, it helps them so much offensively.
A rare miscue early on, the way Xavier Pinson has played. Mentioned he'd been struggling over the last couple of games. He only had 2 points in the win over South Carolina. Had 9 turnovers the last 2 games. 9 points. That's not a good combination. So far, a heck of a lot better. 12 points, 5 of 6 from the floor, and mentioned perfect on his 2 shots from outside the perimeter. He is their leading scorer. We talked about it, Joe, before the game. These 2 teams very, very similar. They don't have anybody that's averaging 20. Their leading scorer right now in conference, Jeremiah Tillman, is averaging 16, yes, but overall, he's down around 13.
Well, Pinson he's the go guy for Missouri. I mean, when he's going and he's going up and down the floor and going north-south, as Gonzo Martin alluded to that he wanted him to do, it's a totally different team because he's getting in the lane, he's creating problems defensively, he's creating shots for other guys. And so when he plays well offensively, Missouri usually plays well offensively.
Good defensive rotation again and help by Missouri. Drew Pember on the floor, kicks into the corner. Big pull-up jump shot by JoJo James, 6'6" sophomore out of Charleston, South Carolina.
Missouri defense very good that possession, but Tennessee just one pass better.
Drew Smith, number 12 in black, is a very nice combo guard. Ball is loose momentarily. That was Mark Smith. Here's Drew down the lane, up and off the iron, and gets that one to fall. Missouri continues to lead it comfortably. 25-13, just inside of 8 minutes remaining in the opening half.
Rick Barnes got to be over there scratching his head on that one. I mean, the guy caught the ball at the top of the key and drove straight to the rim, and just very uncharacteristic of the Tennessee Volunteer basketball team.
Tennessee starting to heat it up. First it was E. Pons, who maybe an unlikely source, hit a couple of threes, and now Vescovi with a 3 of his own. And we have not seen Jaden Springer. He's been out with an ankle injury, and he played big against Missouri in the first contest, but possibly not available the next time they've gotten together. Really good start by Missouri. Up early on, but now Tennessee starting to find the range at home. .738 remaining in the opening half here at Thompson-Boling Arena. Missouri ranked number 19 on top of number 6 Tennessee, 25-16. You got to take care of the basketball, Joe, as you know so well. 18 turnovers for Tennessee in their loss against Florida, and December 30th, 14 turnovers in those full 40 minutes, and already 10 tonight. And Missouri has put 12 points on the board against those 10 turnovers.
Well, and again, I have to go back to Gonzo Martin this morning talking about the first game, and he said we did not get up in them, we did not deny anything, and that is certainly not happening tonight. They have been extremely aggressive, and it's causing Tennessee a lot of problems.
Tillman doubled, if not almost triple team. Out to Pinson, already with a dozen. Smith looking at a three-pointer off the front of the iron, and that's a foul away from the play, going to be called. I think they're going to get Jeremiah Tillman, number 23 in black, throwing Vescovi to the floor.
A little frustration foul there by Tillman, and these are the ones he's got to stay away from. I mean, and it's very hard when you've got 2-3 people hanging on you, crowding you, really physicaling you up and making contact with you all the time. But those are the fouls that he's got to stay away from, because those are the types of fouls that really have no impact on the game. But where they impact the game later on is, let's say he gets a couple of bad fouls later on in the second half. Instead of it being his first or second foul, now it becomes his third or fourth foul because he got a silly foul right there.
17 fouls on Missouri, so Tennessee and Eve Pons at the free throw line, shooting 1-1. That was Tillman's first personal foul, but he's got to be careful the rest of the way in this opening half. Both free throws up and good, and Pons shooting the ball very, very comfortably after struggling from the floor. He's only 2 of 7 against Florida in the loss.
Tennessee changing it up a little, 1-2-2 coming out of the timeout. They show that press early on, a little three-quarter, half-court, 1-2-2, and then it'll shift back into a man-to-man once the ball gets into the front court.
The whole thing pulling it in and out like a yo-yo, looking for Tillman down inside. Spacing just wasn't there, and Missouri turns it over.
And the whole thing that they're trying to do, again, you see the angle here. This is just not a good angle. I mean, Tillman's going into the Scovey. Really, your angle is a little more further out onto the sideline where you can have a better angle to get that ball in there. But that zone back to the man-to-man, all it really does is try to confuse you, eat up a little clock, and make you hurry or make a bad read, which is what it did.
Look what I found. Offensive rebound comes right into the hands of James, and he misses that. Vescovi sets his feet. Good rotation defense. Right onto the perimeter once again off the offensive rebound. Second chance points is knocked down by Josiah Jordan James.
He missed that on purpose, Paul. Trading 2 for 3.
There you go. 8-0 run now for Tennessee, and right back in it after trailing by 11 at the last timeout.
Again, throwing Tillman in the post, it should give him great shot. But if that ball comes off, he's in great rebounding position.
Xavier
There's no rebounds right now when Pinson's shooting.
There's a lot of makes. There's not too many rebounds to be had. Nice play offensively, attacking the rim. Number 12, Victor Bailey Jr., the 6'4" redshirt junior out of Austin, Texas, the transfer from Oregon. Boy, getting a little wild. Back and forth we go. Bailey with it. Working against Smith. Lays that up and in. Back-to-back baskets.
Tennessee's found a little something defensively here. They're getting active, getting after it, getting some open court opportunities that I think is relaxing them when they're shooting the ball a little bit better. Got a little juice going.
Superb run by Tennessee, but doesn't Missouri have to try to get the ball to Tillman? He's only taken 2 shots so far in the game. Looking for some space down inside. Tennessee doing a good job at denying. Pinson dribbles, step back, and buries another one. 17 first half points for Xavier Pinson, who averages 13 on the year.
Paul, I tell you, all the attention that Tillman's garnering down there at the offensive end is really making it easy for Missouri to have a lot of room on the outside, and Pinson is the one really benefiting from it right now.
Finally, everybody going to take a breath. 4:35 remaining in the opening half. Number 19, Missouri, on the road at Tennessee. These two teams met the opening night of SEC play. It was all Tennessee by 20, 73-53. But Missouri has really turned things around with 4.5 minutes remaining in the opening half.
At the very first of this clip, we saw 2 to 3 guys down there around Tillman. This, again, the ball's able to move easy because these guys are running out to the Missouri offensive players on the perimeter, and it's much easier to get by a guy when he's running at you, when he's coming at you, instead of being sitting down in a stance. And that's all because of that gentleman right there. I mean, he's getting a lot of attention, and Missouri's doing a great job of using that and moving the ball. And again, like I said earlier, Pinson right now is the one who's really getting off on it.
Pinson once again now with 19.
And again, coming into the game,
10 from the floor and unstoppable.
Against Florida, they had difficulty with the high ball screen, and Missouri obviously watched that film and is really exploiting it.
Pember off the back of the iron, and that's going to be a pushing foul. That's going to be called against Kobe Brown, wearing number 24, the 6'7" sophomore out of Huntsville. Had a really, really good freshman season for Missouri last year when they went 15-16 overall, 7-11 in conference play.
I know they'd like for him to play better. Boy, he's a good-looking player. I mean, he is just broad and strong and athletic, and I just think he's got a bright future. I think he's struggling a little bit now, but you know, I think his work ethic has been when I've talked to their coaches, is impeccable, and he's going to figure it out. And I think he's going to really finish up strong. He's too good of an athlete.
Devontae Gaines, 6'7" sophomore out of Buffalo, New York, and Tennessee starting to do some damage, staying in this game from the free throw line. So far, they've been getting there, 4 of 8, but Pons made a couple and Gaines now made a couple. 3:50 remaining in the opening half. Here's Brown right on cue, not close, and Pons takes the flat-footed rebound.
Really would rather see him drive that ball right now, try to get himself to the free throw line or try to get something easy and use his strength.
If you're wondering and you hear it, there is some crowd here at Thompson Bowling. It's about 18% of what would be a capacity of 21,000. And that's going to be turnover once again called against Tennessee. It'll be Missouri basketball.
Trying to force Pinson left in the ball screen, just straight line drive to the left. No help, easy two for Missouri.
Dory Nuka here, State Farm halftime report. Myself, Fish, and Shooter right around the corner. We will show you how Bama managed to stay perfect in conference play, but it wasn't their best performance. Kentucky with one of their best performances. We'll show you that. They and Bama go head-to-head on Tuesday, and they'll break down the first half from what we're seeing in Knoxville, guys.
What we've seen here right now is a real show put on by Xavier Pinson, wearing number 1 out of Chicago. Been struggling Missouri in. He met with his coach, and so far tonight, he has been absolutely unstoppable for Missouri.
Well, Paul, he got some really good opportunities like you saw early in the game, these layups and points at the rim. And then I think it just got his confidence going. You saw him, he's knocked down 2 to 3 threes. He's been set, he's been comfortable. And again, a lot of this is kind of the inside, outside. In the half court, I think he's getting a lot of good looks and opportunities again because the attention that Tillman is getting and the struggles that Tennessee is having with the ball screen defense. I mean, a couple times on the ball screen, as we saw right before break there, straight line drive to the rim. And there's got to be better communication from Tennessee and understanding what they want to do. And then they got to tag the roller or get over there and tag the guy that's driving to the rim. But straight line drive for 2 points and getting this guy going. They haven't given up a 20-point score all year. Pinson's got 19 with 3 to go in the first half, so I think that's coming to an end.
Well, he's matched the season high of Scottie Pippen Jr. by Vanderbilt last week, although it took Scottie the whole game to do it. Pinson has done his damage so far in 19 minutes as he gets to the sideline. 8 of 10 from the floor, a perfect 3 for 3 from outside the arc. Absolutely brilliant in the rematch. Number 19 Missouri on top of number 6 Tennessee. 3:25 remaining in the opening half.
And Paul was sitting there talking about how great, it seems like we're just talking how glowingly about how Missouri's playing, and they're up 5 now.
So Tennessee's done a nice job from the free throw line, getting back into this. And then also Pons made a couple of threes, and also Josiah Jordan James, along with Victor Bailey Jr., came off the bench, gave Tennessee a nice bit of punch. So far, no Jaden Springer, the 6'4" freshman out of Charlotte, North Carolina. Remember, he had 13 in the opening meeting. Here comes Bailey down the lane. Bailey's been really good. Misses that just off the side of the iron. Drew Smith, long range, about a 25-footer. Wow.
That was from Nashville. That was from the top of Rocky Top. I mean, that was deep.
Men's college basketball three-point line moved back a couple of years ago to 22 feet 1 3/4 inches. Yeah, that was a clean 25-footer for Drew Smith. Johnson turning, number 45 in white boys. He is a talented young player. Tennessee with a number 4 overall recruiting class, and he was a big part of it.
Just plays like an upperclassman, just under control, good sound defensively, communicates really good on offense and defense. Great, going to be a really nice player for this volunteer team, a great player in the future.
Smith again off the switch, feeling it, makes back-to-back threes. Wow, Pinson at first, and now Drew Smith feeling it.
Again, everything's kind of out of that pick and roll. They got to decide whether they're going to get up there, they're going to go over the top, they got to fight over. I mean, the shooters have gotten confidence and they're too comfortable.
Deion Johnson turned his back, and Drew Smith, who averages 2 steals per contest. Why not? Why not another one? We were talking about it before the tip. Look, Missouri is one of the worst three-point shooting teams in the conference. As a matter of fact, they are last at 28%. And right now, through the first 18 minutes and then some, they've made a ton. They're 6 out of 10. And Eve Pons answers with a basket.
Well, I had them a couple years when they make shots, but here Eve Pons, again, just long, athletic, deceptively strong, with the nice finish there as Tennessee puts a little pick and roll action of their own in against Missouri, gets Pons right in the middle of the floor. But it sounds so simple, but I mean, every time you watch a Missouri game or even a Tennessee game to that fact, Paul, is that they talk about the shooting. That's the next step for these teams to go a little farther in their conference, a little farther in their tournament, a little farther in the NCAA tournament. It sounds like such a simple thing to say, but when these two teams make shots with their defensive ability, they are very, very hard to beat.
Foul away from the play, looking inside for Tillman. And speaking of making shots, Eve Pons, who's averaging 7 points, 5 rebounds, and a couple of blocks per game so far in the opening half, doing his very best to match Pinson. Pons has 15 points on 4 of 5 shooting and a perfect 5 for 5 from the free throw line. Wonderful bounce back performance by Pons, who, like Pinson, was also struggling a little bit over the last couple of games. Free throw needs a bounce and doesn't get it, and that'll be Tennessee basketball. Tomorrow we want to remind you that we start the afternoon of women's college basketball at 1 Eastern, noon Central, with number 4 South Carolina squaring off against LSU. Then Florida takes on Ole Miss. Number 8 Texas A&M. Missouri will follow that one. All the games right here on the SEC Network and the ESPN app. I've got that game tomorrow between number 4 South Carolina and LSU. And South Carolina, Don Staley, what an incredible job she has done building that program. And they're currently ranked number 4, but they might be the best team in the country. Kick into the corner, looking for it. Number 5 not there. Jordan James has that ball rattle in and out. And shot clock and game clock. Tennessee should get another look. Xavier Pinson, if you're wondering, career high is 32. He's matched his season high so far with 19. That was against Ole Miss going back last year. Rick Barnes not happy about what was going on along the sideline with the screen set. Yeah,
he wants.
It's physical.
Tillman.
It is a tough game inside.
He's got a point. I mean, Tillman definitely pushed off, but I mean, they've been hanging and grabbing him all night long. So, I mean, I think that's a good no call. Not if you're Tennessee and you're trying to get Missouri's best player and his second foul right before the half. And Tillman's got to be careful now. I mean, Coach Barnes is talking about it and getting in the official's ear. Got to play it smart here.
You're exactly right. You took the words right out of my mouth, because that is a huge no call if you're Rick Barnes in Tennessee, saying, look, Mr. Ref, it was right in front of you. Yes, it was physical, but that could have been Tillman's second personal foul and maybe changed the tenor of this game. 30.7 remaining. Missouri has led throughout, now on top by half a dozen. They've led by as many as 11. Mark Smith, step back jump shot not there. Tillman tries to save it, steps on the end line. A rare poor possession offensively for Missouri, who's really been knocking down shots. 16 of 30 overall, 6 of 12 from outside the arc. Tennessee shooting it well, but it's been the turnovers. 11 turnovers. They've calmed that down a little bit. They had 9 with about 7 minutes remaining.
That's a great point, Paul. I mean, I guarantee Missouri got 8 to 10 just easy points off of carelessness from Tennessee, and that's really calmed down and kept them in this game.
Right down the lane. Oh, you got to make that. Time expiring. You got to make that. That final attempt won't go.
Wow.
It hit
Doesn't get much easier than that.
Victor Bailey Jr. Yeah, you don't get a much better look than that. We expected a real defensive battle. Well, so far it's been the offense of Missouri. Now let's send it to the studio. Dari Noka, Damon Fishback, and the shooter, Pat Bradley.
All right, it is time for the State Farm halftime report. And Dory, Fish, Shooter with
Tennessee. Number 19, Missouri, on top of the hosts from Tennessee, 6th ranked. The Volunteers, 40-34. Hi, everybody. I'm Paul Sunderland here in Southern California. My partner, Joe Klein, in Little Rock, Arkansas. And Joe, we expected a defensive struggle. To a degree, it's been that, particularly Missouri in the first 7 or 8 minutes when Tennessee turned it over 8 times. But offense broke out, surprisingly, from outside the arc.
Yeah, a defensive battle, and as you said, Paul, somewhere along the way, some offense broke out. And these teams are the 2 best defensive teams in the SEC and arguably in the country. And they put everything on defense, but you look at the shooting percentages in the first half, and it shows anything but great defense. Good, clean looks from the 3, guys getting layups down the lane. Both teams, I guarantee at halftime, were sitting there looking at the percentages that the other teams were shooting and going, what the heck is going on here?
Xavier Pinson, who'd been clearly in a shooting slump over the last 3 games, he was just 7 for 22. Well, that's ancient history. He goes 8 for 10, 19 points in the opening half. And Yves Pons, who averages 7 per game, also was outstanding outside the arc just when Tennessee needed it. But one of the biggest turnarounds, Tennessee turned it over 10 times in the first 8 minutes, gave up 12 points off of those turnovers. They only turned it over once in the last 12 minutes. You look at the way Tennessee and Yves Pons started this game, the way Pinson started it for Missouri, and if you're Tennessee, you got to consider yourself pretty fortunate, I think, to only be down by half a dozen.
You're right, Paul. They're hanging around, and that's what they do. They hang around and they hang around, and then they get you at the end. Missouri's got to come out strong to start the second half.
Up off the backboard. Remember once again the note we showed you on that graphic, that drop down. Nobody, it's been through 12 games, 2,400 minutes previously of player time. Nobody has scored 20 points in a single game against Keon Johnson in Tennessee. Well, Pinson can get his 20th right now in the opening seconds of the second half.
Just having a hard time containing this young fella. I mean, he's really, as we stated in the open, I mean, Gonzo Martin talked to him and said, you're playing too much east-west. That means side to side instead of downhill, north-south. He got the message.
Well, he did, and he put it into execution. Remember, he split a couple double teams. He went right to the rim, and all of a sudden the basket opened up, and he knocked down 3 first-half three-pointers as well. So there's the first opponent for Tennessee this season to score over 20 points. Vescovi, nice play by Tillman to get a piece of that, and it's going to be out of bounds in Missouri basketball. Tillman was well defended by Tennessee, no doubt about that. Been averaging 19 a game over the last 4. He only managed 2 field goal attempts, but he got lots of help from Drew Smith and Pinson, who we talked about.
Well, Gonzo talked earlier today. They've been telling him for 3 years they want him to block more shots, and this year it's just starting to happen, and none of them, they're all trying to figure out what they said or why it's happening, but he's just starting to do a much better job of it.
Well, my parents always said to me, better late than never. God bless them. They had to be very patient with me. Rolling right down the lane. Tillman's been slow, but even slower for Tennessee is their senior captain, John Fulkerson, 6'9" redshirt senior out of Kingsport, Tennessee, has yet to get in the book. There he is, number 10 in white.
They've really
only played 8 first-half minutes.
Yeah, they've really taken him out of the game. I think the physicality of Missouri is really bothered him.
Keon Johnson looking for a three-pointer and bottoms that one out. Keon Johnson, 6'5" freshman out of Shelbyville, Tennessee. Top high school player in the state last year.
He starts doing that, Paul, and he's going to the next level.
Keon Johnson, wearing number 45, commits that ill-advised foul about 40 feet from the basket.
Again, good vision by Vescovi, and just, step 1, 2 in rhythm. Doesn't get much easier than that. It's like playing horse, and he's, H. That's H on Missouri right there. I mean, that was as easy as it gets.
And most importantly for Tennessee, that is 3 personal fouls now on Keon Johnson. And a reminder to Tennessee fans, Jaden Springer, outstanding freshman who scored 13 in the first meeting back at the end of December, unavailable once again with that injured right ankle. they miss Springer. He is an outstanding freshman to bookend with Johnson. Again, the 4th-ranked recruiting class in the country. Kentucky was first, North Carolina, then Duke, and then these Tennessee Volunteers. Vescovi is able to step through and pick up the personal foul. Conzo Martin cannot believe it. Kind of a bailout if you're a Missouri fan, and Vescovi will go to the free throw line.
Well, again, the last possession for Missouri, there was no dribble penetration, no paint touch. And I think every time this half, Tennessee's come down and gotten some kind of paint touch, got it into the paint. And again, it's freed up some shooters. It's helped them get to the free throw line a little bit. And I think that's something that Missouri's got to really pay attention to, that they've been hitting threes. They've been feeling comfortable and good about shooting their threes. But, Paul, they are not a three-point shooting team. And they have to stay who they are defensively, get some runouts, attack the rim, and then play to the three. Don't play to the three first, because it's not who you are.
Kobe Brown just picked up his 4th personal foul, so Mitchell Smith, the 6'10" redshirt senior out of Van Buren, Arkansas, in the game now. He is wearing number 5 in black. So Brown will have to sit for an extended period of time. Looking at Vescovi so far from the free throw line, 0 for 4 from the stripe for Santiago Vescovi, an 87%er on the season.
Be really good for Missouri if they could somehow get Tillman a touch.
Shot clock winding down. There's Tillman, the double team, now guarded by Fulkerson. Steps back and tried to draw the foul on Fulkerson. Well defended by Tennessee.
Paul, got to try to get him the ball a little bit earlier in the clock so he can do some work. I mean, they got it to him late. They threw a little double team at him on the baseline that kind of made him hesitant. And then as the shot clock's going down, he's got to force up a tough shot.
Joe, you are so right, because when you look at what Missouri did in the opening half, Smith and Pinson combined for 32 points. The rest of the Missouri Tigers only managed 8. And I think they've you said you got to be who you are. Well, who Missouri has been is playing through Tillman. They got to get him an early touch, draw the double or triple, if you will, and then get him a second touch with a repost. Stepping on the sideline, that's going to be a turnover for Missouri. That was all in the favor of the Tigers in the opening half until Tennessee cleaned things up. 11 turnovers for Tennessee, 7 now for Missouri, as Mark Smith, the guilty party, ran out of real estate, will head to the sideline.
That's that old quandary you get in as a coach. You talk about, we want to play with pace, we want to play with pace, we want to run up and down, but you don't want to forget while you're playing with pace, especially if you got an active, good big guy like Tillman, that you lose sight of him.
Pons sets his feet, that off the front of the iron. Rebound taken easily by Pinson. That was a good look. Good offensive set that time by Tennessee. Pinson spins that one up. Offensive rebound taken by Tillman. Muscled back up and in, and he'll look to complete the three-point play.
If we get a chance, we get to see, this is what you define as strong. That's a strong young man right there. Just textbook two-hand rebound, gathers himself, and it's just like, get out of my way, I'm putting it in.
Free throw rattles out. When you look at that, that's almost an assist by Pinson, because he goes a straight line drive, breaks down the Tennessee defense, and then frees up Tillman coming from the weak side. Tillman now with half a dozen. James, a couple of dribbles, pull up, jump shot, needs a bounce, doesn't get it. Rebound taken by Javon Pickett on the floor now for Kobe Brown.
There you go, early in the offense now. He's got time to work. There you go. Whoa.
And rejected by Pons, one of the best shot blockers in the country, considering he's only 6'6". Hustle by Tennessee, and now Missouri has numbers if they want it. Inside to Tillman, working away from Pons, and they're going to call a foul on number 35 in white.
Boy, you just see this Tillman coming down, and he just gets strong in the post deep. Pons can't get around him. Foul on Tennessee.
Underway here at Tennessee. Missouri on top, ranked number 19, 44-37. And Jeremiah Tillman, we've talked about him, and deservedly so. 19 over the last 4, but Tennessee has dedicated a lot of energy and a lot of bodies to him, Joe.
Well, right there you could see 3, and he had to force that shot up because it was late in the clock. But then again, bodies all around him. He's got to look to kick that out and let these guys, Pinson, Drew Smith, Mark Smith, let these guys play in space with defenders running at him. I mean, the previous play, the first play we saw was unavoidable. I mean, the shot clock was going down. He had to shoot it. But that next one, when he was feeling Pons and people around him, just pivot out, kick it out to Pinson and these guys and let them go to work with all the space they're going to have. Again, because the defenders who are helping on that big, strong young man right there are going to be running to them, and they're going to be able to drive it back into the lane.
You saw the hardest thing to do. Rejection.
Yeah, Paul, excuse me. The hardest thing to do in basketball, in my opinion, is to play deep, defense when you're running at a guy on a closeout. Because if the guy's any good at all on the bounce, virtually, and if he can shoot just a little bit, he can't take everything away.
Now we'll see what Tennessee does defensively, adjusting as Tillman goes to the sideline for Missouri. Here's Pinson, the first player on the year to score 20 or more points. He now has 21, 19 of those. Number 1 in black coming in the first half. Oh, that's a silly foul. No reason to step out there. 27 feet from the basket. Devontae Gaines says, my bad, my fault.
Just got to see it a little quicker, get out there a little sooner. He was just late. And Pinson was starting to turn the corner and just ran into him. Just show a little quicker.
Pinson picked up by Pons, trying to get in the lane and throw that down inside to one of the 3 Smiths. That's Mitchell Smith, number 5, and Pinson turns it over.
Now, Gonzo said he wants him to be aggressive and wants him to play downhill, and he'll play, let him have a few mistakes, and make some bad judgment plays. That was one of them.
That was one of them. 8 turnovers now for for Missouri. Now still 11. Tennessee has really cleaned things up in that area. 3-pointer on the way and good off the perimeter by Victor Bailey Jr. Look at this, Tennessee back within 4.
We saw last week against Vanderbilt. I mean, he made 3 in a row. Vanderbilt was hanging around kind of at this juncture of the game last week, and all of a sudden, boom, 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 and it was a double-digit lead for Tennessee, and they were off to the race.
Pinson loses his balance. The ball luckily goes into the corner to a teammate. Here's Drew Smith. Gathers down the lane, lays it up and in. Broken play, and number 12 in black just took things into his own hands. Brilliant play.
Well, I can just look at the body language on Tennessee's coaching staff, and these long drives from the perimeter that get right to the lane are really aggravating them.
Gaines, air ball there, ball's on the floor. Pinson comes up with it. Drew Smith in the game now with 15, Pinson with 21. Drew Smith again, little ball fake, and another block that time, once again by Yves Pons.
This is why you love playing with a guy like Yves Pons. This is why I love playing with great players, because when you mess up and your guy blows right by you, he makes it all better.
That was Vescovi with a little fake and some Matador defense, and then number 35 in white came over and just swatted that one away. His 99th block in his last 44 games, so you do the math. At 6'6", that's over 2.3 per game. Just a tremendous defensive talent. We talked about it against Vanderbilt. You played with Dennis Rodman. I mean, I'm not comparing anything but their ability to defend all 5 positions. Is Pons that kind of guy going to the next level?
Well, I mean, I think certainly maybe out of college. I mean, when we think of Dennis Rodman, we think of him as he evolved into this great player. But when he came out of college, he was a straight defensive energy guy. And Pons certainly has that. I mean, he's got a lot of energy. He rebounds, he defends, he's a better shooter than Dennis, but certainly a guy that can play at the next level.
Pons originally from Haiti, born there. Played his high school and club basketball in France. Went to the same academy as Tony Parker and Boris Diaw. It's going to be a turnover along the baseline. Rick Barnes wanted a foul called by one of the officials. So far in the second half, that is make it 7 fouls on Tennessee. Wow, already, and that's only 2 on Missouri. So a long way to go, and already Tennessee is out of fouls. Tillman back on, wearing number 23 in black. Drew Buggs, the transfer out of Hawaii, kicks into the corner to Kobe Brown. Back on the floor, now playing with 4 personal fouls, a big 3-pointer, and the lead is back up to double figures at 11.
Tough shot there by Kobe Brown.
Yeah, it was against the shot clock as well.
Yeah.
That's 17 fouls. When I looked at the stat monitor, caught me a little bit by surprise. Missouri's going to be in the bonus for a long time. There is Fulkerson with his first basket so far on the evening, and he averages a dozen.
That might be his first shot attempt.
That was indeed. You're exactly right, Joe. That was his first field goal attempt. Tillman turning, looking for space. Nice footwork. Really good play over the shoulder on the little jump hook.
They talk time and time again in the scouting report, keeping him off the left block so he can't turn to that shot right there because he's very effective. That time they didn't execute their defense very well.
Tillman now with 8. Fulkerson looks to answer. Another basket, needs a bounce. No. Good offensive rebound by Johnson. Pons sets his feet. Another 3-pointer. Eve Pons on the night now. 3 of 5 from outside the arc. Now he's got 18.
I mean, if he can do that, I mean, he takes his game to a whole different level because he's so good off the bounce. Plus, he's playing against bigger guys. So making guys have to come out there and guard him to be able to take him off the dribble all day long.
And at the other end, Javon Pickett answers.
2 great defensive teams.
Exactly, and not outstanding defensive teams, but particularly good at defending the three and not very good at shooting it. And they're lighting each other up. Missouri's 8 for 15, and Tennessee is 8 for 16 from outside the arc. Off the steal, Pickett coming the other way, keeps his pivot foot, misses the bunny right at the front of the rim, and boy, Tennessee got away with one here.
That's why Gonzo Martin shaves his head right there. those are killers.
Well, Missouri, I mean, they led by 13 in the first half, then Tennessee cut it to 12. And on the run out, this one, there's going to be no, blocked from behind. And Kobe Brown going down hard, trying to attack the basket.
Gonzo wasn't intentional. I didn't see intentional. I saw a play on the ball.
Well, we just have to see where the contact is. Anything above the shoulders, and they're going to take a very, very close look at this, be it a flagrant one. We'll take another look, but that was a good hard attack of the basket. And when it happened live, it just looked like a basketball play, and it looked like Kobe Brown is all right, as is number 19 Missouri. On the road in Knoxville, leading the number 6 Tennessee Volunteers, 56-45. Missouri up by 11, 10:42 remaining. SEC college basketball coming your way on the SEC Network. Kobe Brown is just fine. Look at the attack of the basket, and this is going to be ruled, no question about that, a flagrant one as number 12 Victor Bailey Jr. swiping hard here, Joe, and making contact above the shoulders. Hard contact to the head of Kobe Brown.
Yeah, no, Gonzo was absolutely all over that. I thought it was more on the ball, but that's a no-brainer. I mean, that's a excessive. It's the definition we're looking at right there. He swiped. He came down hard on the guy's head, and yeah, that's an easy call.
Yeah, I agree. Excessive and or just way too flagrant after that. Flagrant not to apply necessarily, but rightly called by the officials. But very, very glad to see that Kobe Brown was able to bounce up after that play and knocks down the first of 2 free throws.
This guy, I don't think's made a free throw in SEC play. I think that's his first free throw in SEC competition.
He's not a good free throw shooter. Looks like a nice stroke here. He was 6 for 15 coming in, only 40% from the line.
Hey, Paul,
but he knocked those down like he was Steph Curry.
Paul, the way the night's going, I mean.
I know exactly right.
I mean, we're talking defense and guys struggling to shoot at the free throw line. And like you said, he looked like Steph Curry. I mean, he's got a beautiful stroke.
Well, Pinson was struggling coming in, make no mistake about that. He goes for 21 so far. Wonderful shooting from outside the arc, and after the foul was assessed, it will be Missouri basketball out of the timeout. Here is Drew Smith off the side of the iron, and Vescovi manages to track down that rebound, but Missouri back up to match their largest lead at 13. We've got a shot clock that's inoperable, at least for the moment. Good work by the officials to spot that. Shot clock never got started, so they'll go over and converse and take a look at that and make sure that the shot clock is set appropriately. Missouri 9-2, 3-2 in conference, and Tennessee 10-2 and 4-2 so far in the SEC. Tomorrow we start an afternoon of women's college basketball at 1 Eastern, noon Central, with number 4 South Carolina squaring off against LSU. Then Florida takes on Ole Miss. Number 8 Texas A&M versus Missouri following that one. All the games right here on the SEC Network and the ESPN app.
And
on
Paul,
the women's side, the SEC so good, Joe. I think there are 7 teams ranked in the top 25. Incredible conference on the women's basketball side.
It's like football. I mean, it's just they just.
It's a very apt
loaded.
analogy.
I mean, they just are loaded. And Paul, I don't want to put any added pressure on you tonight, but just wanted to let you know that I grew up in Slater, Missouri, 50 miles from Columbia, and they have congregated with face mask and social distance rules applying at the Slater Legion Hall tonight to partake of some things and to watch
things
and to watch this this contest on SEC Network TV, and just shout out to everybody in Slater Mo.
Well, I'd say since that's your home territory, the pressure's on you. My job is to help make you look good and let the folks at home enjoy what should be a really compelling college basketball game. But Tennessee has got some work to do, so the folks in Missouri probably feeling pretty good right now. That's going to be a shot clock violation.
If your job is to make me look good, you got some work to do.
I'm trying. Are you surprised so far the way Tennessee has played? And when we talked to Rick Barnes and we asked him about the Florida game, which they lost 75-49, he said, look, you can take missed shots, you can take mistakes, but I didn't think our team was prepared to play. They didn't play hard enough, and they didn't compete. He was very, very upset with his Volunteers team following that loss. And Florida, mind you, has come through a lot. They're playing a lot better.
Yeah, I mean, I am surprised, and I even, when talking to Gonzo about the first Missouri game, he alluded to the Florida game. He goes, like, sometimes you just can't explain it. I mean, it's just head-scratching. I mean, it's uncharacteristic of the Missouri team the first game, uncharacteristic of the Tennessee team versus Florida.
Looking ahead to Fulkerson and that ball out of bounds. Yeah, I mean, look, Tennessee is 10-2 on the year. They're ranked number 6 in the nation, but in their 2 losses to Alabama, they scored 63. And at Florida the other night, when they shot only 29%, 3 of 18 from outside the arc, they scored 49. So the numbers speak for themselves. But again, to Coach Barnes' point, you know, you're going to have nights where the ball just doesn't go in the basket. That's going to happen. But he was very upset with the effort and focus and competitiveness in that game down in Gainesville.
Well, in their 2 losses, we alluded to getting Tennessee, and then if you look at those stats in their 2 losses, they look like what Tennessee does to other teams.
Yeah, and right now, a loss to Alabama, even though it's at home. Wow, Alabama right now in Joe Lunardi's bracketology, Alabama is ranked number 18, but Joe has them as a number 2 seed, and they won again today.
I think Joe is looking
for Kentucky
into the
as well. Tillman, that's the second dunk that he's missed so far on the night.
Well, and Michael Smith just missed a putback, and this is a second dunk. And again, these are plays that Missouri, they've got to convert these things, because it's uncharacteristic of Tennessee to be giving up those point-blank shots, but you better make them while you can.
Vescovi, step-back jumper. Both teams have cooled off significantly. Missouri has missed their last 7 field goal attempts. Missouri just 5 of 18 in the second half. Tennessee 4 of 12, 8-12. Speaking of that remaining, and still Missouri leading 58-45. Josiah Jordan James, 6'6" sophomore, will go to the free throw line, an 83%er. One of the 7 lefties on this team. Wednesday on the SEC Network and the ESPN app. We got another basketball doubleheader for you. It starts in Gainesville with Vandy squaring off against the Florida Gators. 6:30 Eastern Time, 5:30 Central, followed by Ole Miss and Arkansas at Bud Walton. Back with Joe Klein, former Arkansas star. He spent a lot of time there in Little Rock and Fayetteville. One of the great players in Arkansas basketball history. And then on to the NBA for 16 years, where he played with some pretty good players as well, I would imagine.
Whew. Just a few.
Just a few. Michael, Larry, Charles, Scotty, Magic.
Yeah. Kevin McHale.
Yeah, great players.
Kobe, Shaq.
Pull-up jump shot needs a bounce, and indeed. Now, when you look at the score and you follow college basketball, you know the defensive prowess of both of these teams. It's kind of gotten into where these teams want to play defensively and where they usually are in terms of their scoring. 7.5 minutes remaining. Missouri has led throughout. Pons has had a really nice offensive game. Fulkerson misses that one. Still only 1 basket so far on the night.
Both teams missing really good shots.
Gonzo Martin wants to talk about it. He has called a timeout. 7:22 left in this one. Missouri on top, on the road by 11 over number 6 Tennessee. Missouri on top of Tennessee, 58-47, and obviously there are some connections when you around the conference like this. And Kim English was an outstanding player from Missouri from 2008 to 2012. And wanted to get into coaching, and boy, he has done that with a gusto. 107 career wins during his time in Columbia, scored over 1,500 points, and was the most outstanding player of the 2012 Big 12 tournament. What he's done, paying his dues. Already director of player development at Tulsa, and then on to Colorado to work with Tad Boyle. Tad Boyle and Colorado were in Knoxville early in the season, back on December 8th, and then from 2019 to now, a Tennessee assistant coach. And both of us watched his media availability, his press conference earlier in the week in Knoxville. Incredibly impressive, and he talked an awful lot because the reporters wanted to talk to him about the loss at Florida. He talked about defining leadership. What do leaders actually do? What does it really mean? And this outstanding young coach, I think soon to be a head coach, as Dickie V would say. I mean, this young man is just exceptional. He said he was going to talk to the team. And Tennessee right now, they need that leadership to try to get back in this game as time is winding down.
Such a credit to Rick Barnes to letting him coach, letting him, not holding him back. Just again, he's just a head coach in waiting. Very impressed with that young man.
Kobe Brown gets the offensive rebound, tied up by Vescovi. And we'll sort out the possession when we come back. Take another quick break. Missouri continues to lead now by 11. Now let's take a look at tonight's Protection Spotlight, brought to you by Allstate. Defensive plays one after another. The top 2 defensive teams in the SEC, and they have been working on it. Xavier Pinson led Missouri in the opening 20 minutes. They had 7 steals. They turned Tennessee over 11 times. That put them out to a 13-point advantage. They led it at the half by half a dozen and have continued now to extend that out, but it's all predicated for both of these teams on the defensive end.
Well, Paul, this game's starting to evolve into what we thought it was going to be in the first half. And where, the shots were being made and some things were happening in the first half that we didn't expect offensively, but it's kind of morphing back into here towards the end that the defense is starting to really come into play for both of these teams down the stretch. And Missouri has an 11-point cushion, so they've got a little bit of an advantage here, obviously, but Tennessee's going to have to find a way to make some shots and get back into this thing.
Stepped through by Fulkerson, but that's got to be, did they call a foul on that after the possession arrow? That was Tennessee's ball, obviously.
He is so good at this.
Lonzo Martin cannot believe a foul was called. Watch the footwork.
And then little cha-cha-cha right there.
He moved the puppies, as they say, and instead get to the free throw line. Look, Missouri is giving Tennessee every opportunity to get back in this game. They haven't scored in the last 4 minutes, and they've missed their last 9 field goal attempts as Tennessee puts on some half-court pressure.
This is kind of just token pressure. Now you'll see it kind of, they match up. They just want to confuse you, get the shot clock down, and take you out of your rhythm offensively.
Tennessee has done a good job on Pinson, who had 19 of his 23 points at the halftime break. Crossover and right on cue. Knocks down a huge momentum shot from Missouri.
Tennessee got everything they wanted defensively out of that possession, but Pinson just made a difficult shot. There was no ball movement, no inside out, but again, a great shot cures all of that.
Fulkerson working on Tillman, who rejects that. Loose ball comes out in the kick ahead. Opportunity here, and Javon Pickett lays that up and in. Tennessee's 19th turnover. They had 18 at Florida earlier in the week. 19th turnover now, a season high, or season worst, if you will. Points on turnovers were a real key in the opening 20 minutes to give Jeremiah Tillman and the rest of the Missouri Tigers an advantage that grew to as many as 13 points.
Tennessee can't lose sight of who they are. I know that they're losing a little time now, but they're not a come down. They'll play in pace. If they get a turnover and they can fast break and get a quick shot, they can do that in the open floor. But offensively, when they're in their half court set, they got to work the ball. As Drew Smith makes a terrific shot.
Drew Smith now with 17. And a couple of big baskets, one off a turnover. The largest lead now as we approach the 5-minute mark. It was a 13-point advantage in the opening half, and now 14 minutes at 64-50.
Big possession here, Paul.
Fulkerson trying to go right at Tillman and throws in a tough shot off the window.
You can see Fulkerson really trying to attack and get into the body of Tillman. Tillman doing a good job of showing his hands and walling him off. But Fulkerson still makes a great, difficult shot.
Tennessee leads the all-time series. They're meeting for the 17th time. Tennessee has won 10 of them, and they've won 4 in a row. Kick it down the lane, and that's going to be a traveling violation. Still plenty of time left in this game, and when you look at maybe thinking ahead to some three-pointers, Tennessee is 8 of 17 from outside the arc, the exact same number for Missouri.
Tennessee's got to think, points and stops. You don't think threes. There's not a 12-point play out there, okay? Get some points here, free throw, 2-point, 3 if you can get a good look, and then get stops.
Yeah, Tennessee's got to be perfect here over the final 4 minutes and 10 seconds. Got to score every time and get multiple stops. And Drew Smith will get called for reaching in and bail Tennessee out of what was a not great possession, but that's only the 4th team foul on Missouri, so still no free throws coming.
Good job by Drew Smith showing, but don't reach. Show your hands. Keep moving your feet. Don't get anxious. Don't get, really wanting to get a steal so bad that you reach in and bail a guy out. They kept him on that side of the floor. The defensive possession was going great for Missouri. Don't bail him out with a foul.
James, tough runner, going to a strong hand. What a tough shot, but Tennessee had to have it. Now back within 10.
If you're Tennessee, you need stops. 2, 3 in a row. Just get a stop, get a rebound and a stop.
And obviously Konzo Martin telling his outstanding point guard Xavier Pinson, the junior out of Chicago, to run some clock, take some time, make sure you have quality shots each possession down. 3.5 left in this one. Smith, step back, shakes off a Fulkerson, not there. Offensive rebound taken by Brown, and he's going to be fouled. So free throws coming.
And Missouri got the switch they like. They got Drew Smith up top on Fulkerson. They get the shot, but Kobe Brown just comes after it, really bails Missouri out with a great offensive rebound.
Tonight, the SEC Now team wraps up a full day of hoops with all the highlights, breakdowns, and interviews with players and coaches. 10:30 Eastern, 9:30 Central, right here on the SEC Network. And, of course, on the ESPN app. And with 3:24 to go and Kobe Brown at the free throw line, let's take a look at tonight's Zaxby's Player of the Game. And that will be none other, of course, than Xavier Pinson, who had been struggling coming in, but struggling no more. 19 first-half points now with a season-high 25. Your Zaxby's Player of the Game, Xavier Pinson of Missouri.
And, Paul, as I was talking to you earlier, I think in a timeout, I've watched a lot of Missouri games, and John Sunville has done a lot of the games that I've listened to and watched. And he always alludes to this young man right here. He's the straw that stirs the drink. When this kid gets going, Missouri gets going. They're a different team when he plays aggressive and when he's involved offensively and making shots and doing things that just, you know, they become a next level team. You know, whatever that next level is, when he plays better, they go to that next level. And tonight he certainly has been the major reason that they are up 10 with 3:24 left in this game.
Yeah, absolutely. The door was left open when Tennessee, and understandably the way Jeremiah Tillman had been playing, dedicated most of their defensive game plan to slowing down number 23 from Missouri, and that gave Pinson along with Drew Smith all kinds of opportunities. They have combined for close to 40 of the 64 points for Missouri.
I mean, that offensive rebound by Kobe Brown, those are the things that just break your back as a team, because you really, you pretty much in that possession. Tennessee did a really good job, but they couldn't finish the possession. They couldn't finish it with a rebound, and they just got out-hustled and out-worked to the ball. Now that guy's you tell me this kid's a 40% free throw shooter.
I'm not telling you that. That's what the numbers are telling us coming in. It is absolutely a fact. Remember, he hit a big three. He's got a great looking stroke. Kobe Brown, 6'7", 240 pounds. Again, had a really solid freshman year, both scoring and rebounding at the defensive end. Missouri's been very impressive. They beat Oregon early. They beat Illinois. They've also notched some really impressive wins. They have wins against South Carolina, Texas A&M, Arkansas. And then I think the perception of Missouri might have changed a little bit, or gotten diminished, if you will, unfairly when they lost by 20 at home to start SEC play to Tennessee. And people started scratching their heads. But this Missouri team is really good. They're on their way to improving to 10-2 and 4-2 in conference play.
Well, you can tell they're good, Paul, because they're winning on the road. I mean, they're doing some things on the road against some good teams, and those things don't happen by chance. I mean, they are showing some grit and some toughness, and you know, they're one of the oldest teams in college basketball, and I think that has a lot to do with it.
Well, they had 88% of their scoring coming back, and they were listed by the NCAA as the 8th oldest team in the country, and that experience has paid a lot of dividends. Had some blood first by Mitchell Smith. He came over and got some attention from part of the medical staff, and now Jeremiah Tillman getting the same thing. Well, we've got a short break. Let's remind you, of course, there's always more college basketball coming your way on the SEC Network. Another doubleheader in Gainesville, Florida taking on Vanderbilt, 6:30 Eastern. That's coming your way on Wednesday, followed by Ole Miss and Arkansas. Pons, who's had a really good night offensively off the back of the iron. Vescovi goes in and scraps out the rebound. Bailey Jr. buries a three. There is time, and that was a big three-pointer. Give you a little bit of hope.
Gritty play by Vescovi to go in there and get that rebound and then find the shooter Bailey on the perimeter.
Bailey now in double figures with 10. Pons leading the way with 18. Smith picked up by Fulkerson on the switch, and that's going to be a foul. Real battle down inside, and Tillman is going to be called for the personal foul, throwing Yves Pons to the floor.
Again, Yves Pons, great defensive player, boxing out, getting his body on him, just relentless defensively. And as a big guy, you know, I've had that happen to me when the guys are just, especially a guy like him, that you can't, you're used to going up against other big guys, and you can get your big, meaty, nasty paws on him. And when you got an athletic guy like him that's flying around you and you can't get a hold of him, and then finally you get your hands on him, you're like, all right, enough, and you throw him down, you get the foul.
Tillman goes to the sideline with his fourth personal. Fulkerson looked like he was grabbed there, but I have to ask you, did you have big or meaty, or what kind of hands did you have? I think I know, but I just want to be sure. When you put your hands on somebody, they knew it?
Yeah. They're actually silky smooth. I'm actually thinking about maybe being a hand model, Paul. If you know anybody out there in California that could.
I do, as a matter of fact. I'll send him right your way, Little Rocker. Oh, Pinson throws it up and in. Now he's got 27. Pinson with 27. Wow. Drew Smith with 17, leading the way. Let's turn our focus to Tennessee here, Joe. Tennessee loses 2 in a row. If you're the Volunteers, what's your thought process now?
Well, here again, here's just his ability. They get the switch, and he makes an incredible shot. But the last 2 or 3 times they've really gotten the switch with Fulkerson guarding the guy. Drew Smith the time before, and they've been able to get good looks. But if you're Tennessee and you've lost 2 in a row, I mean, I think the great thing you have going for you is you got Rick Barnes over there. I mean, this isn't his first rodeo. He's been through, you know, as the seasons go along, you're going to have ups and downs, and you just got to fight your way through it. And you got to find your identity again. You got to get healthy. You got to get everybody healthy, and you got to get everybody back. And you just got to keep grinding, and you got to keep believing. I think you've seen a little bit of that with Arkansas, how they went through a stretch where they just were, you know, getting beat, you know, really badly, and they pieced together 2 really nice wins. And you just, you know, credit to Coach Musselman, and again, Coach Barnes has just got to keep the same message coming, the same accountability coming, and you just keep grinding and working and find your way back to where you were.
Vescovi clearly not 100%. Jaden Springer, the outstanding 6'4" freshman out of Charlotte, unable to play because of that lingering ankle injury, and they certainly could have used his offense tonight. Remember, he had 13 in the SEC opener back on December 30th. There is Jaden Springer having a really solid freshman year, averaging 10 points, 3 rebounds, 2 assists, incredibly efficient, 56% from outside the arc. They being Tennessee, really could have used his offense.
He just gives them the
ground. Another offensive rebound, fouled by Pons. It'll be free throws coming with only 1:11 remaining.
And again, you know what? It's at the 3rd time probably in the last couple, you know, minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes that Missouri has really played well defensively, taking it right down to the shot clock, but haven't finished the possession with the rebound. And again, this young man at the line has accounted for a couple outstanding, just out-toughing his opponent to get the ball to make big-time plays from Mizzou.
You mentioned Arkansas. They're a 92-71 winner over Vanderbilt. Auburn. Sharif Cooper just has turned that team around since getting his eligibility. Now has played his 5th game for Bruce Pearl down at Auburn.
I can tell you,
Kentucky
nobody
got
wants
a big one today as well, talking about gritting it out.
Yeah. Nobody wants to see Auburn down the stretch, I can promise you.
Not now. That's going to be a blocking foul. Somebody said, and it's a great line, I can't take credit for it, there's a new Sharif in town. It might have been Pat. It might have been Damon. It might have been Dari. It might have been Jimmy Dykes. Was it you, Joe?
No, I can't take that. That's got a Pat Bradley-ism written all over it, because he also is the one that so I think famously coined the Incredible Folk. Yes.
Well, it's pretty good.
Can I get a drum roll?
There is definitely a new Sharif in town. No question about that. He has been incredibly impressive. 21 points a game, 9 assists, not turning it over. I can't. It all can't be puppies and rosebuds, because he's only 5 for 25 from 3-point range. So he hasn't been absolutely perfect, but pretty good. This one under a minute.
He can really pass it.
Oh, man, he had 16 and 12 today in Auburn's win. Had 11 assists in the first half. Nice play. That basically a concession basket to Josiah Jordan James, and with 47.5 seconds remaining. 7-point game. 7-point game. Let's take a look at the upcoming schedule for Tennessee. Currently ranked at number 6 after the loss to Florida and this loss at home. That will change. Mississippi State. Number 9 Kansas lost their 3rd game in a row today. That was to Oklahoma. Then at Ole Miss and at Kentucky. And then a rematch with Florida on February 10th. That'll be in Knoxville.
Yeah, I think if you look at everybody's schedule right now in the SEC, you look and there's really no gimmies. And then again with Tennessee, there's certainly no gimmies there. And you sprinkle in a little Kansas there, which again is struggling.
Yeah, just for good measure.
Yeah, but definitely a team full of talent. And so again, it's a grind, and you got to take the good with the bad. You got to just keep grinding and just believe in what you're doing and keep working. And Tennessee will certainly do that, and they're not quite out of this. I mean, Missouri needs to be a little careful right here, because a steal and a 3 or something really quick for Tennessee can change things pretty quick.
Missouri's in the double bonus, so Tennessee, well, they let several seconds go off the clock and then finally foul down the other end against Mark Smith. So Mark Smith will go to the line to shoot a pair.
Missouri got a little lax in their previous 2 possessions with some bad, decisions, and again giving Tennessee hope. But with the double bonus, I mean, a couple free throws here, and that's all she wrote.
So if this holds, that'll end a 4-game losing streak for Missouri against Tennessee, as Mitchell Smith comes back on. Once again, the story was Xavier Pinson, 19 first-half points. Missouri led it 40-34. He's going to finish, well, we're not finished quite yet, but he's got 27 right now. Drew Smith with 17 to lead the way. And Eve Pons broke out of his shooting slump to score 18. Bailey Jr. had 12. James with 12 also.
Big time win for Missouri.
Big time win on the road. Yep, returning the favor, and of
play.
course remembering that Tennessee won by 20 down in Columbia. Upcoming schedule now for the Missouri Tigers, who will improve to 10-2, 4-2 in conference. At Auburn, get ready for Sharif, TCU. Go ahead, Joe.
A little Kentucky, sprinkle in a little Kentucky, in Alabama, and then Ole Miss doesn't play any defense at all, and they're pretty easy to go up against too. So there should be no problems with those next 5 games. I mean, it's just, again, when you're grinding and you're in this thing, I mean, you have to go one game at a time, maybe one half at a time, because it's just, you start looking down the road, and if you're struggling a little bit, you start questioning yourself, and how are we going to do this, and how are we going to beat these guys, and how are we going to do that. You have to stay in the moment. And again, the thing, as most of these teams in the SEC have, the coaching is incredible. They do a great job of just keeping their kids focused and doing what they need to do.
Once again, not fouling immediately, but trying for the steal as time is winding down. 20.2 seconds remaining. Really solid job for Missouri coming in to Knoxville to get this one.
How gratifying.
Missouri was ranked as high as 12, and then when they lost that game to Tennessee, they're currently 19th. So These two teams moving up and down, if you will. Alabama moved into the rankings a couple of weeks ago. Alabama had that one loss to Western Kentucky that sort of hurt their resume, but boy, they have just been on fire. They've won 9 in a row and are currently 8-0 in the conference.
Everybody talks about their offense, but I mean, they have really stepped it up defensively. I had them early in the year against Clemson, and Clemson beat them. And I mean, Alabama couldn't throw it in the ocean. But I mean, they were, you could watch them, and they were a different team from last year because they were hanging around because they were really, really guarding.
It's going to be a touch foul on the perimeter against Kobe Brown. Alabama won today over Mississippi State 81-73. And remember, earlier they said they broke their old record. They set a record 23 three-point shots. Quinterly was 6 for 7. John Petty was 8 for 10. And Josh Primo was 6 for 8 from outside the arc. That should be against the rules.
I mean, they play that style. I mean, they've just got it down. I mean, they've got it down to where they just. If you look at their shot chart, I mean, it's layups and threes. I mean, they are the epitome of analytics and pace of play. I mean, their pace of play is changing things in the SEC and in college basketball.
When they made those 23 threes, that was a 105-75 win over a very talented LSU team, and that was in Baton Rouge. And then they, prior to that, won 90-59 over Arkansas. So Alabama, but you know, is it still with Alabama? Live by it or die by it in terms of three-point shooting, Joe?
Almost definitely. You know, I mean, they're looking for paint touches. I mean, somebody asked him today, "What is there such thing as a bad three?" And he said, "Yeah, there's not a paint touch." So, but the three is a funny animal, as we've witnessed here tonight. I mean, you had two very poor three-point shooting teams. All of a sudden, they come out and hit, and they look different. It's, when you start missing some of those long threes, quick threes, you can get ugly quick too. But Alabama shows no signs of that happening anytime soon. I can tell you that.
Missouri wins it by a final score of 73-64. They led the entire game. Xavier Pinson, a season-high 27 points, and just a tremendous performance on the road for Missouri. Joe, your final thoughts before we send it out?
Just a great win for Missouri. I mean, after the beating they had in the first meeting from this team, just showed a lot of grit, a lot of poise, a lot of leadership. Hats off to them. They're definitely a top 25 team.
No doubt about that. And moving up in the rankings, congratulations to Konzo Martin and the Missouri Tigers. A convincing win on the road in Knoxville. Once again, 73-64. Now let's send it to our good friends in the studio.
All right, guys, thank you much. You know what that is from Missouri? And we're going to have Xavier Pinson on the show in just a minute.
What's that, Dar?
That is their 5th Quad 1 win this season. You know how many teams have more than 5? 1. That would be number 1 Gonzaga.
The Zags.
And only 1 has 5. That would be Missouri. And then you got a gaggle of teams at 4. That's a significant achievement. Shooter, what do you take away from it?
Well, I think Missouri has an identity. They know what they're trying to do. They try to establish Jeremiah Tillman early on. And I told you guys about the Jet, known as Xavier Pinson. This guy, now I didn't know he'd be able to knock down shots the way he did, okay? That I will admit. But it's funny how a lot of teams, as your point guard goes, that team will go. And yes, Jeremiah Tillman has been absolutely an anchor for